Story 1. The Mountain's Hand. I wasn't alone on the ridge, even though I didn't see a soul all day. I knew it because someone kept fixing my mistakes. By noon, the wind had teeth. My map snapped in my hands, the trail peeled into elk prints, and cairns sank into the heather like old bones. I set a marker, 3 flat stones and a twig, and when I glanced back, the twig had been rotated, pointing the other way. My guy line sagged. Later I found it retied with a perfect trucker's hitch I never learned. Wood I hadn't collected lay clean and stacked by my fire ring, bark peeled back to the dry heart. It wasn't a prank vibe. It felt corrective. At dusk I pitched my tent in a saddle, sky bleeding copper through black firs. The air smelled of pitch, frost, and dust. I boiled noodles, cupped my hands around the steam, tried not to watch the tree line where the light turned to syrup. That's when the clicking started. 3 slow ticks, like rocks kissed together. Tick, 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 nothing moved. No footfalls, no branches, just the pulse of the mountain and that patient counting. I told myself porcupine. I told myself night settling. I told myself anything but someone out there, rehearsing. I crawled into my sleeping bag and felt cord against my ankle. Not the guy line. A thin white twine had been laid around the tent like a perimeter, then tied to a peg by my door with a knot I recognized immediately. The exact sloppy version I make when I rush. My S-shaped bite, my too long tail. I hadn't tied it tonight. The clicking came again, closer now, like it was following the twine's circle. "Hello?" I said, hating how it sounded. Friendly, like an invitation. The wind died. In that stillness, something whispered. No words. Just the dry hiss of breath through needles. I unzipped a hand's width and tasted the cold. Firelight flickered orange against a shape at the edge of camp that wasn't there a moment ago. Not a person. Not quite. A dark hinge in the air where 2 trunks met, deeper than the shadows around it. When I looked directly at it, it wasn't there. When I looked away, I saw it in the corner of my eye. Patient as a door waiting to be found, back inside, under my sleeping bag. A paper scraped my wrist. A page torn from a small notebook, folded twice. The edges were damp, the fibers swollen, like it had been in someone's mouth. Stay on the borrowed path until dawn. Below the words, the S of stay hooked hard left, the way I've drawn S since elementary school. It was my handwriting. It was not my paper. I didn't sleep. I listened to the ridge breathe and to the ticking walk my camp's white circle, sometimes near my ear, sometimes way off, as if the mountain picked up the sound and set it down again. In the star-thin hours, I saw boot prints appear around the tent in my headlamp. My brand, my size, with a little crescent gouge on the left heel where I'd stepped on a nail 2 summers back. They overlapped themselves like too many notes written on the same line. When the sky lightened, the door in the dark was gone. The twine had been rolled neatly into my side pocket. I packed up like a man paying a bill. The trail back down felt obvious now, ridiculous even, like I'd been blind yesterday. My corrected cairn stood straighter. The creek crossing I'd botched had 2 dry stones I didn't remember. Dew smoked off ferns. Birdsong returned like it had taken a night shift elsewhere. At the trailhead, a green board held a can for permits and a map gone sun-white. Beneath the plexi, a laminated missing poster sat pinned under a thumbtack. A face, my face. Mouth a little crooked. Hair flattened from a beanie. Name, mine. Last seen. Tomorrow, October 23rd. I didn't move for too long. Wind pulled at the corner of the poster and the plastic knocked against the board. Tick, tick, tick. I told myself a joke then, because humor keeps your brain from shutting off. Maybe time works different up there. Maybe the mountain knows how to correct a person like it corrects a cairn. In the rear view, as I finally drove, a strand of white twine hung from the mirror, tied wrong in my way. I put a finger to it on instinct and felt the fibers still cool with dew. I didn't take it down. Story 2. When the wind stops. The radio started saying my name at 12:17 a.m. Exactly when the generator coughed, the wind cut out, and the cabin glass stopped rattling. Evan, it said through static. My name shouldn't fit inside that dry crackle. But there it was. Syllables riding on hiss. Evan, don't. I sat up on the bunk. The room was a thin box, propane stove, pegboard with old lures, a black stove that ticked as it cooled. Outside, the spruce leaned like listeners, and Silverjaw Lake held a flat sheet of moon. I thumbed the CB mic out of habit. Cabin 3. Anyone on Channel 9? For a second, quiet. Then, my own voice, delayed and warped, slid back at me. Cabin 3. Anyone? I froze. That tone, my impatient edge, was unpleasant in a way you only notice when you hear yourself. Knuckles touched the porch rail. Not knocking, feeling it. Wood spoke in its tiny, creaking language, grain by grain. I knew that sound because I'd made it 100 times coming back from the outhouse, hand sliding along the top beam. Whoever was out there had my rhythm. Evan, the radio said again, closer this time, like the speaker had stepped toward the mic on my desk. You're going to think it's me. Don't look at the window when the wind stops. It's a skip, I told the silence, as if I could frame this into something technical. Night conditions. Signals bounce. Voices crawl along temperature lines. That explanation worked until the voice on the radio whispered a phrase I'd only said once, last winter, in this very room, to no one. It's a cheat day if you don't write it down. The wind stopped. When wind dies, the silence is heavy. You hear mouse hearts. You hear your own clothes. You hear the porch boards flex like inhaling ribs. Evan, don't, the radio begged. A scrape across the roof sent powder snow sifting down the stovepipe with a soft hiss. Then a voice from the porch, my exact voice, softer, with a smile I suddenly hated. Hey, man. I forgot my gloves. Let me in. My mouth went dry. The only window was above the sink. Black glass now, my reflection floating in it with the room like a diorama. I kept my eyes on the floorboards. I could see the reflection in the metal kettle, though. I could see the window in the kettle, which meant I could see the thing outside without looking. It was a trick my brain made up on the spot to survive itself. In the kettle, my reflection leaned and put its hand on the glass. My hand did not move. The latch twitched. I'd looped paracord through it for good measure and secured it to a spike in the jamb. The cord went taut, then slack, then taut again, like a fish testing the line. Evan, the radio's voice cracked like a nail half-driven. At dawn, transmit. Tell me not to look. I waited the night like a held breath. Snow slid. Once the roof sighed as if relieved. The generator, out of gas, gave up completely. The cold stepped in with a careful foot. When the first smear of light arrived, the porch went still. I opened the door on stiff hinges. 2 sets of prints marked the frost-dusted planks. mine from yesterday afternoon, and another pair overlaid perfectly step for step, heel gouge and all. But they ended at the threshold. Inside, a wet mark shaped like a palm stained the wood near the radio. The CB was damp. The mic cord had a kink in it from how I must have grabbed it. I pressed play on my little cassette recorder, the one I used to log weird lake weather, not really expecting much. My own voice filled the cabin, breathless and scared. "The window is a mouth," I heard myself say. "Don't make it say your name." Then the tape kept going. There were sounds I didn't remember making, because I hadn't made them yet. The knock, repeated, the hitching way I say hello when I suspect a prank but hope it isn't. And then, faintly, as if the mic had been set on the porch rail, the exact moment I slid the latch open. I looked at the door. The paracord was cut clean through, ends feathered like something had pulled them until they sang and snapped. It's late afternoon now. The wind has been practicing dying for an hour. The radio has gone quiet except for my breathing, which I haven't done yet. Listen, that's me on the tape, counting down. 10, 9, 8. I am not going to look at the window when the wind stops. I'm not. Story 3, The Rope Below. We pitched the tent where the reservoir shone like a knife laid flat. We weren't supposed to camp within sight of the water. Signs said unstable shore, sudden drops, changing levels. But rules feel small when the lake is quiet and you've carried your pack all day. Mia said the surface looked fake, like glass painted black. Every sound pinned to it and slid. Our laughter, the stove hiss, the zipper's tiny saw. Far off, a buoy bell clanged 3 times and fell asleep. We found the rope at dusk. It lay at the waterline like a vein, half buried in silt, thick with weeds. Every time we shifted in our camp chairs, the rope twitched, just a tremor, like it felt our weight. We joked about it because that's how you start not being afraid of dumb things. "Reservoirs built on a drowned town," Mia said, warming her palms over the stove. "School, church, houses. They leave the heavy stuff. They say the bell sometimes rings under there, metal to metal, and that's what you hear." "And we leave because we're good citizens," I said. "At dawn." We didn't leave. Night stepped in with a temperature drop you could taste. The forest behind us tightened and eavesdropped. On the opposite bank, a single orange dot appeared like someone had picked up a piece of our fire and walked off with it. When we quieted, the far fire quieted. When we laughed, it laughed. A second later, a cracked echo bending around water and distance. "Hello?" Mia called, cupping her hands. "Camp across? You good?" "You good?" said the far bank, clipping the front off her words. I stood, feeling stupid, and the rope jumped. Not toward the lake, toward our chairs, like a dog hearing its name. I could hear it now, under the bell's lazy rattle. 3 soft pulls timed with our breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale. The line went tight, then slack, grains clicking against the fibers. Mia shined her headlamp down. The beam broke on the surface and made a tunnel into the lake. Suspended silt, scales of leaves, the first gray suggestion of the drowned world. The rope plunged off a concrete lip and vanished into the milk dark. "Don't," I said, because the word felt necessary. We lay in the tent later, fire turned to ember eyes, and listened to the rope rearrange its thoughts along the shore. Every so often, the bell clanged 3 times, as if agreeing with itself. I dreamed, I think, or half-dreamed, that the tent door had been unzipped and re-zipped in perfect silence. In the morning, our camp had rotated. The chairs faced the water, boots lined up neatly at the edge, toes pointing in. Our names, which we'd written in Sharpie on the food bag, had been retraced in a heavier hand like a stranger practicing our signatures. We decided to leave. Mia tugged the line first. It resisted with the steady, patient strength of something that had all the time. We pulled together, hand over hand, wet grit tattooing our palms. The opposite bank's echo pulled with us out of rhythm, delayed and wrong. The first thing that surfaced was a life ring. White gone yellow, rope netted through rusted eyes, letters still legible on the paint. Return to lost and found. Someone had written over that with a marker, long dissolved, the ghost of a name snaking the curve. It looked like mine. The second name might have been Mia's. The date in the corner was today. "We didn't," she started, and stopped. We both looked at the disposable camera on our cooler. We hadn't used it yet. Under the cracked resin on the ring, protected like a saint under glass, lay a water-warped Polaroid of two people sleeping by a fire. It was us. The angle was from the lake. "I'm done," Mia said, voice small. "Please." We tried to throw the ring back. The rope took it, grateful, and the bell rang 3 times in approval. The far fire winked, blinked, and was gone. We packed fast, hands fumbly, bags heavier like they'd had a long night too. When I reached for the tent stake by the shore, the ground gave an inch, then an inch more, like I was stepping on bread. I pulled back and left a perfect print that filled with water from below, not above. Silt rose like breath. "Don't say my name," Mia said abruptly, as if remembering old folklore. "Just don't." Not out loud, I nodded. I didn't say hers either. We made it to the service road with that feeling of being watched by a very patient audience. Behind us, the bell clanged once, twice, and then a third time that sounded like it came from above water, close, maybe at ear height. By the truck, my door handle was wet. On the passenger side window, drawn with a fingertip, a big clean circle like someone trying to see in. The streaks ran down and ended in 3 neat drips. I wiped it away, sat, started the engine. As I backed up, the headlights took a last sweep along the shore. The ring bobbed in the shallows, anchored back to its hidden post, a small white mouth opening and closing with our vibrations. In the rear view, the circle I'd wiped reappeared on the glass, bright with fresh condensation, perfectly round. It's been days. I still hear 3 soft pulls when I breathe at night. Sometimes I dream of sleeping by the fire and seeing myself turn my head toward the water. Sometimes, when Mia is in the other room, I hear my voice from the kitchen call her name by the lake. I don't say it back.